Welcome to the DeFi Standard, and this is Mickey B. Fresh.
And Patty XRP.
So you got both of us today in a bloodbath and a sea of red. The market is just falling like it's never going to come back. So it's been a rough day, but to many of you who have been here for years, this is just something expected. Like, I haven't been shaken today at all, to be honest with you. Have you, Patty?
No, not really. I was just more pissed at myself for buying at 25% down, and then it went another 25%. So I hit my buy limit on Uphold, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's what I was most angry about. But I mean, like, we're still XRP's up on the year. Most cryptos are still up on the year. So, I think the dollar's still going to decrease in value. They're still going to print more money. So I don't see why the bull run would end right here. And, just kind of with all the FUD that dropped in the past week, everything just kind of seemed like a coordinated sell-off, people getting liquidated, new people selling out because of how, sharp and drastic that move was. So, I think we'll have to see how it goes the next few days, probably be very volatile. But, I think the market's still going up from here.
Absolutely. I agree too. I mean, we're in a bull market, this is a little retracement, and we got an excellent video from Brian Brooks talking about the actual value of tokens and protocols to really put you in a different perspective and get away from this whole just the token, because there is the protocol that they're attached to. So let's go over here and take a listen to our good friend Brian Brooks talk about the valuation of token. He goes, the token focused approach is the wrong approach. Think about the networks. All tokens are about is to induce people to participate in the networks. The networks that win will have very valuable tokens. So after this video plays, we're going to tie it into Spark and XRP. So let's listen.
Is going to be, I guess, how people sort of view the case for crypto. Is it just a speculative asset? Is it a store of value similar to gold? Or is there a use case for it as a transactional means here? What's the argument that you make?
Yeah, well, look, first of all, let me just say that the token-focused approach to this conversation, I always say, is the wrong approach. So forget about the crypto tokens for a minute. Think about the networks that are the reason the crypto tokens exist. That's all tokens are about, okay, is to induce people to participate in networks. So forget about whether, Tezos or Filecoin or Uniswap going to be more valuable tomorrow or less valuable tomorrow. The question is, do you have a thesis for the underlying thing that they're powering? So think about it this way. You don't buy Apple stock because you think that the stock is going up or down. You buy Apple stock because you think that iPhones are going to win in the market. And if they win in the market, then by definition, your stock is going to go up in value. Same thing here. If you think Ethereum is the best platform to build financial services apps, then ETH tokens are going to go up in value. Stop thinking about the sort of the technical analysis of the shape of the price movements and start focusing on the network that's being built. The networks that win will have very valuable tokens, and it's more like that than it is about the tokens themselves. So that's why at the OCC, we really focused on the idea that some of these networks are payment networks. They're being used by companies to transact value from person A to person B. So they should be regulated like SWIFT and the automated clearinghouse, right? It's very easy to understand that. Yeah. Versus other things like Filecoin, it's a decentralized storage device. It should be regulated like the cloud. Once you think about it like that, it's a very different.
Is going to.
Wow. So you hear that right there? He's talking about the value is in the protocol, but he defines the protocol is the network. Stop worrying about all this TA up and down. That's great for traders, Patty. But long term, the fundamentals, not of the asset, but of the network. And when we say utility, not just utility of the asset, the utility and participation of the networks is what matters here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, it's kind of the old adage at this point, but value is in the protocol. And, when you think about some of these different like layer one blockchains, XRP Ledger, Flare networks coming, the Bitcoin blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain, like all of those are, have the potential future to be, their own economies. Like, we're not just talking about like, oh, some people put capital into a stock with a single company, which is a very small microcosm of an entire economy. Like these networks, blockchains, ledgers, they are going to be the economies of the future. So we can't just look at things like, it's craziness. Yes, the value you personally own is going up and down in the short run, but in the very long run, long term, if you get into a project that has the potential, for scalability in the future, efficiency, robustness and security, those are the kind of things you got to be looking for. And that's like the underlying infrastructure, not the token. The token, just like he said, is a way to basically capture the value of what a network is worth as it's used in participation throughout the whole thing. So naturally, money is going to flow into it, but focus on like that bottom layer and what's actually built there. Like, I think that's the biggest point with this. And, Brian Brooks is a really smart guy. So I love hearing him say this too.
So what is the value that's actually in these protocols? So let's talk, for example, about Spark here. Now, the Flare network has certain protocols built into it, and one of those is the Flare time series oracle. The Spark token comes with this detachable vote that allows you to earn Spark rewards. Everybody in the network who owns Spark is able to receive rewards. That's part of that inflation mechanism. But unlike other networks where the inflation just goes to miners or proof of stake validators, it goes to everyone in the network. So that's part of the actual protocol and also the F asset system in Flare. So when you bring over F assets to the Flare network, you're rewarded in Spark. So this incentivizes participation in the networks. So what Brian Brooks is saying here is this is where the applications are going to be built. This is where the activity, this is where the utility occurs, not just in some far distant place where the asset's used outside of the network. It's on the network where it actually matters, and that's where the value comes from. So even ODL, it's abstracted, but it's still going to be used on the network. So how do you see that with XRP and with Flare basically on the network applications? That's where we should be looking, I think, Patty.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you can think of just one use case right off the bat. You see Uniswap on Ethereum. Mm-hmm. That is trading that's happening on chain. That used to be something that was solely, facilitated by a centralized entity. Mm-hmm. And, we look at the flash crash today, people get liquidated by these centralized exchanges because they can't access them. I mean, who wants that? I mean, I can't imagine how pissed I would be if I was leveraged up and, I could have got out of my position or added more collateral, but some centralized exchange failed. So that's like the thing about these blockchains have been running for a long time and they have extremely high throughput, like the XRP ledger. Flare Network's going to be the same thing since it uses that federated Byzantine agreement consensus. So, I just see everything in the future is going to start moving on chain because, that's the most inclusive financial system we could have in the world is a decentralized one that's global. And I just think everything's going to move there. We're going to see a DEX pop up on the Flare network with Flare Finance coming through. Maybe there'll be more in the future. And then we have all these applications that are built on top that are, since Spark is the native asset of the Flare network, it's going to be a part of all of those. And all of those, decentralized applications are being built on top of the Flare network protocol. So that's just that's the base layer. And if you think about the entire US, that economy, the base layer is what is our underpinnings there? And then you have companies built on top. Sure, they're valuable, but what's the most valuable is the entire economy in aggregate. And that's what the Spark token will basically represent for the Flare network over time in the long term.
Excellent. Yes. Well said. And the one thing about the Spark token's design, and this is part of the value in the protocol, Spark is able to be utilized simultaneously in applications and still earn yield by delegating FTSO vote. And the same goes for FXRP and other F assets. You could simultaneously use these assets in applications and still collect their yield. These are super assets. This is not hype. This is facts of the new network. And the community needs to wake up and start understanding this and understand that participation is huge. And like Brian Brooks said, Ignore the token price like it launched. Look at the fundamentals of the underlying networks, because that's where ultimately the value is going to come from. If you're a trader or a little swing trader here or there, that's great. But if you see the big picture of what's being built here, you're here for the long term. And there should be no exit strategy because you see what's being built. We're just at the precipice of these networks. You know, Ethereum is really right, Patty, the first network that's seen actual activity on it and applications built.
Yeah, and it's exploded too. Like, you know, if you think about like Ethereum, yeah, it was like, I remember the last bull run, you know, it was a big project with a lot of things going on, but it didn't have this actual like on-chain activity like it does. And this time, like, I never imagined it was taken off to $4,000. Maybe, you know, I was just underestimating it, but I think, you know, even with extremely high gas fees, like the activity is there. So that's where the value is going. And we see competitors like Cardano now, Polkadot, Flare Networks coming up, and they're trying to capture that same value. But like with Flare Networks, it's in a much more like organized approach instead of just kind of like, you know, fitting jigsaw puzzles like left and right, basically what's going on Ethereum. You know, they're coming in to solve the negatives of the Flare of Ethereum rather, with cheap gas fees, fast transaction times, and, you know, no proof of work basically. So there's no energy, you know, expense essentially. And then also, you know, the other issue with Ethereum at this point is it's going to switch over to the proof of stake network. So like Flare's coming out with their plan immediately, and like FBA with the Avalanche consensus on top is what they're going with. And that's just a really big task for Ethereum to take in the future.
Yes, for Ethereum to switch over to 2.0 is going to be a huge undertaking. And, you know, Flare, Cardano, these networks are going to be spun up, ready to go, designed the way they are. Now, Flare has this unique advantage because it has the Ethereum virtual machine. So it has all the same smart contracts with a superior native asset. Spark is superior to Ethereum because it comes with yield. And it comes with also a detachable governance vote. The governance that's built into the Flare network is very powerful, and it's called liquid democracy. And that value is going to add to Spark's value. The fact that it has additional features will bring value to the token. So this detachable vote for FTSO, the detachable vote for governance, and then the value of Spark as collateral will eventually be portrayed in the token's value. But right off the bat, it's a lot of just speculation up and down. So when Flare Networks goes live, much of the community is going to be glued to the price of it on exchanges. That is a mistake. That is what you should not be doing. You should be looking to stack as much Spark as you can. And now is the time to learn. So now is the time to learn. So let's move on, Patty, to some news that came out today from Ripple. And also we're going to tie that in with Flare coming out of Egypt. So the National Bank of Egypt and the Lulu International Exchange connect through Ripplenet to elevate remittance experience into Egypt. So Ripple says, today we're excited to announce a partnership with the National Bank of Egypt, the North African country's largest bank, through Ripplenet. And this is going to use the Lulu International Exchange to process cross-border payments from the United Arab Emirates to Egypt. So this is an area right here in the Middle East that's really a key area. And it talks about the top 5 remittance recipients globally: India, China, Mexico, and Philippines. Egypt, I think, is number 5 here. So that's a big remittance corridor. So we don't need to go through all of this in here, but I want to tie this to Singularity, Patty. Now, this is a company attached to the Flare networks. Now, how do we know that? Let's go down here and read. Our logic: the untapped economic value by allowing universal access to financial tools is the reason why governments are encouraging innovation. Now, they basically integrate trade tech into different banks and financial institutions with identity. So Singularity is a money and identity management service platform that allows users to manage their personal and business accounts, as well as their sovereign and corporate and digital identities. Singularity completes its financial service suite by having a trade tech platform for small medium businesses to connect them to global suppliers, as well as giving them access to financing from different sources. The platform will be agile, flexible, and evolving to cater to the changing and evolving user needs and wants. So, what do we have here? Supported by Flare and Ovamba and Unilever. Now, who is the advisor? Oh, there's our buddy, Hugo from the Flare Networks. And who is the team run by? The CEO, right here, is head of business development at Flare. And we know Toby Norfolk Thompson. This was the guy from, I think he was from Barclays. And he is also an advisor to the Flare Networks. So he is the senior advisor and interim CFO at Singularity. So there is a tie in here. Now, what do you think with this Egypt connection and trade tech, Patty?
Yeah, so I mean, we see that, the largest bank in Egypt is going to be utilizing Ripplenet. Now, we don't know if that's immediately going to be using XRP or not. There was no comment on that at the beginning, but let's just say down the line, they eventually get into XRP. So if they're holding XRP in the future, then I could see them wanting to earn yield, different, their bank trying to earn some yield while maybe they're not moving their capital. We have Singularity Finance in Egypt that's going to be tapping in directly to the Flare network. And, that just seems like a really easy option to earn a little yield while you're holding your capital in the meantime, and just connecting with that and using their trade tech platform to get into a little DeFi on top of cross-border payments. So you can see kind of like a suite of products that enterprises need, and it's definitely forming in the Middle East.
Absolutely. And then we have this partnership that Singularity has announced with Ovamba, is a trade tech partnership in Egypt. So trade tech innovator Ovamba Solutions and financial service provider Singularity Finance have partnered to deliver financial inclusion and growth capital to small and growing businesses in Egypt. Singularity are the first to sign a reseller agreement with Ovamba in the region. This new partnership gives Singularity the rights to sell Ovamba's digital solutions to banks, microfinance institutions, and other alternative providers of trade finance to small and medium enterprises in Egypt. I'm not going to go through it, but if you go on Ovamba's website, they have integrations into central banks, CBDCs, commercial banks, trade tech, supply chain. They're pretty big in the Africa region. So it looks like this Singularity Financial is specialty tailored to this region of the world, the Middle East and Africa and Egypt. And I think at some point this is going to work with Ripplenet. We don't know what the connections there are, but with DeFi and digital identity, it's all going to be coming together. So Flare Networks will play its role too in the future with Ripplenet.
Yeah, definitely. And on top of that, so I know we mentioned that Unilever is one of the partners of Singularity Finance, and they basically have a massive amount of brands underneath them. Like, if you've ever heard of Axe or Ben & Jerry's and things of that nature. So that really ties into like supply chain and also trade tech financing. So you can see that they're kind of building out a little ecosystem of different types of firms. And we also know, like from past videos with Hugo, that he wants to target these kind of like farmers or supply chain and all these different kind of things. So we're kind of seeing the picture start to build here.
Well said. I completely agree with that. And that's where we don't know exactly where the Flare team is going to go, but we could see here it's pretty evident that one of their directions is going to be towards the trade tech supply chain. But to cap off this video, I just want to touch back, Patty, on the Flare token and why, just to reiterate here, why it is a super asset and why F assets. And I know you did multiple videos, and I encourage everyone to check out the recent videos that Patty has done on the F assets and Spark. They're excellent, and it really gives you a good insights into the Flare network, because right now is the time when you need to learn as much as possible about this network, because much of the community and many of the top influencers are just being intellectually lazy, and they're just ignoring it. And then when it comes, they're going to be rushing to figure it out. Like, for example, Patty,
Mm-hmm.
Flare Network is not a hard fork of the XRP ledger. It's a utility fork, right? So what is a utility fork, Patty?
Yeah. So,
Explain
I
that
mean, basically, it's just like a network that's connected to the XRP ledger that basically has a special connection between the two so that they can basically act synergistically. Like, that's how I would think of it best. Like, I'm pretty sure that they kind of like coined the term utility fork. It's not like a common fork that we know about it. You could even consider it like a soft fork. It's not like they're directly taking from the XRP ledger and then bridging off like you would have seen with Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin SV. It's they have, via like the state connector system and all that, they have a hook into the XRP ledger that allows them to trustlessly and seamlessly work together. So it's a big difference in like what they're doing here and what kind of forks that everybody in the crypto space is familiar with. And also to touch on, your point there that like you need to get ready now, because I promise you, if you don't start learning about this until a week or two before launch, you are not going to feel comfortable with what's happening, especially if all you have ever done with crypto is buy, sell, and hold. You are not going to feel comfortable with what's going on with Flare networks. So you need to like understand like what is going on. Like this is an entirely new way to do blockchains and start them from the ground up. And, it's probably going to be one of the most decentralized networks that I've seen out of the gate with the way the token distribution is, all the different nodes set up, all the governance is spread out across all the Spark holders, so it's not just some small group making decisions. And, one of the biggest, as in like the videos we showed last week, basically, area for return on investment is by minting F assets. And that is going to require you to give up the native asset that you want to mint onto the Flare network, which is redeemable at any time. You have the right to redeem it, but that's going to make a lot of people feel uncomfortable if they're not like understanding what's actually going on and what kind of, security is built around that and how they basically have backstop for really, a bad situation, essentially.
Exactly. So what this means is there is a tremendous opportunity for those who do understand it to take advantage of it. Because this is not hype. This is not just baseless speculation. This is facts. There's a ton of money to be made. There's going to be 28 million Spark released every day from the Flare Time Series Oracle. There's going to be roughly 20 to 40 million Spark released every day to F asset holders. That's happening. And I don't understand how the community is ignoring this. And now the idea of a utility fork is that it's not taking any value away from XRP. What it's doing is it's creating a fair distribution. So it's able to distribute the tokens, Spark tokens, out to existing XRP holders. And then by having the inflation mechanism from the FTSO, it also distributes out to those who participate in the network. And then the F asset general rewards pool, it distributes algorithmically out like an escrow to those who mint F assets. So this is the most fair type of distribution in multiple ways possible to spread the value out. So you won't have a few whales controlling the network. And the value will only go to those who are participating as good participants in the network. And that will give it solid governance. So this is a very powerful, it's a next generation network. Honestly, I think it's next generation beyond Cardano. That's just my opinion. Some might not agree with me like that. But its token is next generation. I think the fundamentals of networks, a lot of people have been getting too caught up in TA. And I don't have a problem with TA and trading and short-term trends. That's all great, but I hope everyone took what Brian Brooks said there. And he said the fundamental value of these tokens are in the network protocols. So remember that long term. And that's where the power of crypto is. It's in the protocols, not just the up and down market cycles. This market cycle might be like 2013, and then all of a sudden fundamentals come in and throws that all out the water. So you need to be prepared for what's coming in the future. It's fundamentals. Technicals will play a role. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Patty. I feel very strongly about that in the future.
Oh, I mean, I do too. I mean, the metrics around market cap's just a terrible metric. There's issues there. Then we also, the TA is going to change when demand is driving the price. So, all of that is fine and dandy for now until, these blockchains are being used at scale.
Exactly.
So just keep that in the back of your mind that could change at any moment and you don't know when that's going to come.
Exactly. Well said. I think on that note, we're going to finish it. Now, Patty and I are not financial advisors. We are not tax attorneys, and this is not financial advice. But I am Mickey B. Fresh.
And I'm Patty XRP.
And we're out.